20 years ago, Dave Grohl made a metal album. Started out as just something he wanted to do because he loves metal, but it became something bigger than he would ever expected. In this video, we'll talk about the story of how Dave Grohl went from wanting to record a few instrumental tracks to something that would evolve into an album that would include some of the most legendary metal vocalists in history. So let me begin with the story. We all know Dave Grohl as one of the most popular alternative rock musicians around, but after years of touring and recording with the Foo Fighters, he wanted to make some metal music. This was the music he listened to back in the early 80s when he was younger. The idea came when touring for the Foo Fighters album, There's Nothing Left to Lose. That album was kind of like a mellow, laid-back album, so this made Dave want to play something heavier. When the Foo Fighters tour ended, Dave decided to go to his house in Alexandria, Virginia, with Adam Kasper, who was a record producer. Dave owns a home studio in that house called Studio 606. While they were there, they would just hang out and watch TV, and Dave would be messing around on the guitar. So whenever Dave came up with a riff that he liked, they would go downstairs and record an instrumental track. Dave basically recorded all the guitars, the drums, the bass. These were songs that were intended to be instrumentals, and it took about 45 minutes to complete one song. They spent 4 days in the studio and had 7 tracks. Dave called this project Probot. He wanted to distinguish it from the Foo Fighters. Keep in mind, this all took place sometime between 1999 and 2000, because at that time, Carlos Santana had a very popular album called Supernatural. This album had lots of guest stars, such as Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20 and many different singers and musicians. Dave got an idea from this album. He thought, what would happen if I contacted a bunch of metal vocalists to lay down some vocals on these instrumental tracks? So Dave made a list of all his favorite metal vocalists from the 80s. They were not big names, though. They were artists who were more in the underground, or for the most part, that is. So at this point in the project, Dave was back on tour with the Foo Fighters. He got the help of another music producer named Matt Sweeney. They would then start contacting these metal vocalists. They included Cronos from Venom, Snake from Voivod, and Eric Wagner from Trouble. Dave Grohl didn't expect these guys to want to work with him, given his reputation as being this alternative rock musician, but the opposite happened. You see, these metal guys saw that Dave was cool, and many of them were happy to just get on board with this project. So now David decided to go back to the studio with his 2 producer friends and record 5 more instrumental tracks. There were even 2 songs that were intended for Ozzy Osbourne's Down to Earth album, but they were never used for that album. Once they all had the instrumentals and enough metal vocalists, they would then send out the demos to these singers, and they would allow these singers to come up with a song title and lyrics. So that's the story of the recording of Probot, but this video does not end here because I want to go over the tracks, give my thoughts, and then we'll talk about the musicians involved. First track is called Centuries of Sin. This one features Cronos of Venom. This one has an old school thrash metal sound. I know it's debatable whether or not Venom was thrash, but I don't think they sound exactly like Venom. It sounded more like a modernized, thrashier version of the band. I thought it was a good opening track. It had a lot of energy, some evil undertones, some dark lyrics, and it was pretty good. Next was Red War. This is when I had Max Cavalera. Probably more Soulfly than Sepultura, had more of a groove and nu metal sound, but I like everything that Max Cavalera does, so I don't really have any complaints. It was energetic, the riffs were heavy, Max's vocals were in top form, so definitely another pretty good track. The next track is Shake Your Blood. It features Lemmy from Motorhead, and you can tell that Dave Grohl was tailoring his songs for the singer he intended them for, because this one sounded a lot like a Motorhead song, had all of those elements you would expect as the driving bass guitar sound, and the lyrics really fit the song. I know they were written by Lemmy, but it just has one of those catchy Motorhead style choruses. Next is Access Babylon. This was a short song with Mike Dean of Corrosion of It was only about a minute and a half long. It was very energetic, angry, and aggressive. The next one is called Silent Spring. This one features Kurt Brecht of Dirty Right. This was an old school crossover punk and thrash song. It was very fun. It was upbeat. The lyrics told the story. It had a very early to mid 80s type of sound. I really like this one. I'm also a big fan of DRI. I probably need to review one of their albums one day because I like the band. Next one is Ice Cold Man. This was a pretty good song. Lee Dorian, who was the lead singer of the band Cathedral. They were a pretty popular doom metal band from the 90s. The song had that old school doom sound, lots of those slow Black Sabbath style guitar riffs. It's a really good song. This was the only song with an additional guitar player who was Kim Thayil of Soundgarden, and Dave wanted him because he was better at playing lead guitar, whereas Dave was better at writing riffs and doing the rhythm guitar. So for that reason, it's still a really good song. It's some classic doom metal. Next one is The Emerald Law. This was a pretty cool song. It was very different. It has Wino. He was a singer from St. Vitus and another band called The Obsessed, who are actually releasing an album this weekend, so I'll probably give it a listen, probably a full review. I thought it was different. It was slow. It was heavy. Also very trippy and psychedelic. They did some really weird things with the composition, so it was one of those songs that stood out for being different. Next one is Big Sky. This one features Tom G. Warrior of Celtic. This one caught me off guard because at first it had more like an industrial sound, but I was thinking the song didn't really match the vocalist, but the song really went into like a slower, doomier direction. This had a sludgy tone and some alternative rock undertones. I like the thick bass guitar sound on this one. This was very different, but not too bad. The next one is called Dictatosaurus. It has Snake of Voivod, and really cool song title. It was interesting how Dave created these songs with specific singers in mind because it sounded a lot like a Voivod song. This was probably more on the commercial side. It was still pretty good. It had a very spacey and technical sound in the guitar. It was not too bad. It was actually very catchy. This goes into My Tortured Soul. Eric Wagner of Trouble. This was another singer from a classic doom metal band who actually passed away in 2021. Had those heavy doom riffs, maybe like one of those sludgy songs of Meldins, like that group. This was another one that was not too bad. Then we have King Diamond and Kim Thayil. Again, I said he wouldn't appear, but he actually did appear again. So I was expecting the Eurythmics cover, but it wasn't. It was a dark and eerie song. This was on the slower side. King Diamond does his high falsetto vocals. It has these like horror movie types of lyrics. The song is about some type of entity that enters people's dreams. I don't think it's Freddy Krueger, but some Freddy Krueger type of person. Actually, one of the better songs on the album. There was a bonus track called I Am the World. One of those that appeared on the CD after some silence, and this one had Jack Black of Tenacious D. The title was inspired by Iron Man by Black Sabbath. This one had demonic sounding vocals, but it was very humorous, tongue-in-cheek, and it's about some type of evil warlock, so not too bad. Now for my final thoughts, I thought it was good. They did a good job of capturing that early 80s sound. I was surprised that doom metal was the dominant genre on this album. I was expecting some more thrash, but it was pretty cool. They used a lot of more underground bands as opposed to going for bigger names. I heard that Dave originally wanted Chuck Schuldiner of Death, but he was going through brain cancer at that time, and I think he passed away a few years later. But that's it. It's a pretty cool album. It was like one of those old Metal Massacre compilations from the 80s. I think that's what he was going for. So check it out if you've never listened to it. It's Dave Grohl, but it's definitely metal. You probably wouldn't be able to tell he was behind it if you didn't know. So check it out. And by the way, Dave Grohl did another metal album released in 2022. It was actually released the day that Taylor Hawkins died, and it is the soundtrack to Studio 666 called Dream Widow. I will link that review right there, and check it out if you want something similar. So that's all. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I will see you in the next one.